The anime begins by showing several students being suddenly summoned to another world. They are all shocked to find themselves standing before the princess of this new world. Apparently, everyone in the room recognizes them as legendary heroes, whose purpose is to save the kingdom called Racer. After a few moments, the group is informed about their special skills. One is a swordsman, and two are magic users. That's when we meet our rather unimpressive protagonist, a 27-year-old man who has been given the unique ability of running an online store. Unfortunately, that's the only thing he has going for him. Soon, we are introduced to the king of Racer, Zera, who is deeply worried about an impending invasion by the Demon King. He pleads with the summoned heroes to help defeat this great evil. All the students agree, except for our protagonist. He calmly declares that he has no interest in becoming a hero and just wants to live a peaceful life without causing trouble. Given a small sum of money, the protagonist decides to go shopping and rest at a nearby inn. While exploring the world, he discovers it has a status menu system, similar to a game, though much simpler, and finally begins learning how to use his ability. The next day, he leaves the kingdom. During his journey, he meets an elderly merchant who explains the value and peculiarities of the world's abilities. This conversation helps the protagonist realize that his seemingly useless skill might be incredibly powerful. The merchant even shows him a box resembling a semi-infinite storage bag, and before they part, warns the protagonist that it was wise to leave the kingdom. Rumors suggest that the borders are about to close due to a growing threat of monster attacks. Later that day, the protagonist visits the Adventurers Guild to hire some escorts who can help him safely travel to a neighboring country. With the kingdom on the brink of crisis, all official transportation has been suspended. He quickly decides to pay the 8 gold coins required for the escort and meets Werner, an adventurer, and his team, who will accompany him. The rest of the group includes Vincent, Rita, Ramon, and Franco. With brief introductions out of the way, the group sets off on their long journey from the kingdom of Vinan to the neighboring land. Along the way, they are attacked by a massive wild boar. Thankfully, the group defeats it, and the protagonist uses the meat to cook a meal. Surprisingly, he turns out to be an excellent chef. The adventurers are amazed when they taste the soup. It's not just delicious, but it also significantly boosts their stats. Realizing the value of this, the protagonist decides to keep his true abilities a secret. As their journey continues, the protagonist prepares dinner every night. One evening, a mythical beast named Fenrir appears right in front of them. The creature demands food, and the protagonist reluctantly shares what he has. However, Fenrir is not satisfied and asks for more. Caught off guard, the protagonist asks if Fenrir can wait while he cooks. Surprisingly, the beast agrees. The protagonist works for hours preparing meals. After finally feeling satisfied, Fenrir declares his affection for the protagonist and insists on forming a familiar contract with him. Though hesitant, the protagonist agrees and seals the pact. From then on, the powerful beast becomes his companion, talisman named Feli. Soon after, the story tells us the legend of Feli, who appears in history books as a creature capable of destroying entire nations. This worries the protagonist, who only wants to live a peaceful life. He fears that entering a new country with such a powerful and feared creature might bring trouble. However, Feli reassures him that he will protect him from any threats. As the day ends, the protagonist begins packing his things and laments that he's out of the wild boar meat from earlier. Feli, ever by his side, continues to stay close as their journey continues. As they sat down to eat, one of the adventurers standing next to Proda immediately asked for more meat after seeing how much was available. To avoid any argument, Proda casually says, "Felu, can you get more?" Without realizing that Fel, bound by their familiar contract, takes every command seriously, Fel instantly vanishes and returns moments later with a giant chicken, already prepared for cooking. Proda gets to work, and after feeding the group, prepares a special meal just for Fel. Later, the group finally reaches the border of the neighboring kingdom, where they are met by a large number of soldiers. The soldiers are visibly alarmed by Fel's presence. Sensing the tension, Proda steps forward to assure them he means no harm and has no intention of causing destruction. Fel agrees to behave under one condition. He won't hurt anyone unless they try to harm him or Proda first. To reinforce this, Proda adds, half-jokingly, that if Fel causes any trouble, he'll lose his daily meals. With that, the group is allowed to enter the kingdom without further issues. However, the mere presence of Prota and Fel quickly becomes the talk of the town. Before long, word spreads throughout the country and even reaches the king himself. Though Prota only seeks a quiet, stress-free life, he accepts that things may not go as planned. Still, he declares that his goal now is to travel the world, and he doesn't intend to stay long. Werner suggests that Prota join the Adventurers Guild, or the Merchants Guild. Doing so would grant him certain benefits, such as exemption from entrance taxes when traveling to other cities or countries. Not long after, Prota is approached by a man from Margrave who invites him to join him on his estate. The invitation stems from the news of Prota's contract with the powerful beast Fel. Although Prota politely declines, it becomes clear that the man has a hidden agenda. He likely hopes to exploit Fel's power. Sensing the danger, Fel reveals a bit of his power in front of the nobleman, scaring him off completely. The man flees without a word, leaving everything behind. It's then revealed that the nobleman was part of the aristocracy and had plans to use Fel for his own gain. We also learn that the only creature capable of rivaling Fel in battle is a dragon, making any confrontation against him almost unthinkable. After this, Werner and his team inform Prota that their mission is complete and say their goodbyes. From now on, Prota and Fel will need to navigate this new city on their own. Prota decides to register with both the Adventurers Guild and the Merchants Guild. That way, he can make a living by selling goods while also protecting himself and Fel from being targeted. Not far from there, he reaches the Merchants Guild and signs up as a new trader. He learns that the guild has 5 ranks, and one's rank increases based on participation in trade and completed transactions throughout the year. Since Prota is new, he starts at the lowest level, Iron rank. The next morning, Prota brings some goods to sell at the guild in hopes of earning more coins. When the receptionist sees what he brought, she immediately runs off, leaving everyone in the room confused. Moments later, Prota is summoned to meet the guild master. The master inspects Prota's goods, which turn out to be nothing more than salt and pepper, but is left in utter shock. He says he's never seen salt and pepper of such quality before, calling them worthy of royalty. Prota, surprised by this reaction, is pleased to know that all of his goods will be purchased. When asked about the source of his goods, Prota can't reveal his online store, so he simply claims that he acquired them during his travels. The guildmaster then offers him 4 gold coins for the salt and 10 for the pepper. This is a huge deal, especially considering that earlier Prota had tried to sell the salt for just 5 copper coins each. Sensing hesitation, the master assumes Prota is bargaining and starts raising the offer even higher. Eventually, Prota agrees and sells everything for a total of 17 gold coins. With that money, he realizes he can live peacefully for quite some time. Now, all that remains is for him to register at the Adventurers Guild. Unlike the Merchants Guild with its 5 ranks, the Adventurers Guild has 7. The lowest rank is G, and the highest is S. Prota eventually agrees to join the Adventurers Guild, with the only obligation being that he must complete at least 1 quest per month. For his first mission, he accepts a simple task: collecting medicinal herbs. On the same day he fed Fel, Prota decides to evaluate his stats. He's stunned to find that Fel considers him fully equipped, with maximum stats across all available categories, an overwhelming realization for someone who wanted a quiet life. The next morning, Prota sets out on his guild mission with Fel. While Prota collects herbs, Fel heads off to hunt animals for food. Before leaving, however, Fel senses the presence of monsters in the area where Prota is working. To protect him, Fel casts a magical shield around Prota to ensure nothing happens to him while he's away. Thanks to Prota's enhanced skills, gathering the herbs is quick and easy. With plenty of time left, he begins preparing food. Eventually, Fel returns with his catch, mentioning that he also left other prey at the edge of the forest. After a hearty meal, they head to the spot Fel mentioned. Prota is shocked by the sheer number of animals Fel hunted, more than he could have imagined. He's a bit unsettled, especially upon realizing some of the prey were bipedal, walking on 2 legs like humans. Once everything is packed, Fel allows Prota to ride on his back, and they make it back to the Adventurers Guild in record time. When Prota turns in the herb quest, the receptionist is surprised. He not only completed the mission quickly, but also gathered far more herbs than required. It's impressive, especially considering Prota is still a low-ranked adventurer. Curious about the orcs Fel had hunted, Prota asks if he can sell their remains, or at least some parts. The receptionist directs him to a shop right next to the guild that handles monster materials. The man in charge asks what kind of loot Prota wants to sell, and without much fuss, Prota pulls out an orc from his inventory and says he wants to sell 5 of them. The man is stunned. He leads Prota to the back of the store and mentions that rumors have been circulating about him, the mysterious new adventurer who managed to make a familiar pact with Fenrir. Prota grows nervous and tries to dodge the subject by unloading the rest of the monsters Fel hunted. To the man's astonishment, Prota's pile includes Class B and even Class A monsters, considered delicacies in this world. The man is speechless. A few moments later, he hands over a generous portion of meat to Prota as a sample of what the guild can offer in return. The next morning, Prota and Fel return to collect the full payment and are shocked to see not only a mountain of meat waiting for them, but also a staggering reward, 2 gold coins. The buyer is just as surprised and explains why the payment is so high. Every part of an orc, from bones to skin and even testicles, has practical uses in crafting and alchemy. The man also gives Prota several rare, rotten stones, which are valuable items dropped by Class A monsters and above. Before they leave, the merchant gives Prota some advice. Fel could easily be mistaken for a large wolf. This might help avoid unnecessary panic or scandal when entering new cities. With no time to waste, Prota and Fel set off for the next city. Thanks to his newfound wealth, Prota decides to treat himself to some premium meat from his online store. Later that day, he discovers that not only is the food tastier and higher quality, but it also grants powerful stat bonuses, though only at about 50% effectiveness compared to earlier meals. Excited by the new energy, Fel goes out hunting again, but not before leaving Prota protected by another magical barrier. She then rampages through the region, effortlessly slaying every monster in her path. Her strength, energy, and magical power all seem to increase as she hunts. Among her prey is an orc general, a formidable variant far more powerful than standard orcs. Fel defeats it in a single blow. As if that weren't enough, she also defeats the general's lover, another high-ranking creature, just as easily. This spree of destruction continues all through the night. When Prota wakes the next morning, he finds himself surrounded by mountains littered with the corpses of powerful monsters. Realizing the danger of attracting such attention, he decides not to cook this type of meat again, at least not without seriously thinking it through. Prota and Fel were enjoying their usual meal when Fel casually mentioned that Prota could now be considered the best wind magic user, having been blessed by the gods, specifically by Nir. Prota was shocked, not even realizing that magic truly existed in this world. Fel clarified that even the barrier he cast to protect Prota was a form of magic. Still, Prota, being rather ignorant in such matters, hadn't considered it as such. Curious, Prota asked if it was possible for him to use magic too. Fel explained that as long as one possessed magical power, it was indeed possible. Intrigued, Prota checked his status and saw he did have some magic power, albeit in small quantities. Fel then explained that magic in this world could be activated simply through thought. One only needed to think about the desired spell for it to manifest. Prota found this concept surprisingly simple and decided to try it out, but his first attempt only resulted in mild embarrassment. Noticing Prota's frustration, Fel offered to guide him, explaining that true magic use requires control, intent, and practice. After some training, Prota was able to launch his first fireball. Though small and unimpressive, it was a start. Fel encouraged him, saying that what he lacked was real combat experience. Prota, however, was hesitant. He'd never fought in a battle, nor had he even wielded a sword. But Fel was unmoved. Without asking for more, she dragged Prota off and lured several goblins toward them to give him a taste of real battle. Terrified, Prota ran, chased by the goblins, but after a moment of panic, he managed to muster his courage and cast several fireballs at his pursuers. Unfortunately, he tripped on a rock mid-battle, and just when it looked like the end for him, the magic barrier Fel had placed activated, saving him from harm. With renewed confidence, Prota began casting stronger spells, eventually forming a powerful fireball. The intense magic use, however, left him completely drained. He collapsed just as some goblins remained alive, but Fel arrived just in time to finish the fight and wake him later that evening. When Prota awoke, Fel informed him that his magical power had increased significantly. Checking his stats, Prota saw not only an increase in all his attributes, but also the appearance of a new skill, Flame Mastery, marking the beginning of his unique magical path. To celebrate, Fel presented the body of the Goblin King, one of the strongest goblins in the world, whose magic stone could be sold for a good price. Prota tried to stand, but his body gave out due to the magic exhaustion. As a treat, he gave Fel some Japanese sweetbread. Surprisingly, Fel enjoyed it, despite Prota worrying about the lack of nutrients. Fel reassured him, being blessed by a goddess, she was immune to sickness, poison, and even pain. The next day, Prota and Fel arrived in their next destination, a new city. As expected, guards rushed to meet them. This time, Prota cleverly claimed that Fel was a great wolf than revealing her true identity as Fenrir. This little deception helped calm the guards and ease the tension among the nearby townsfolk. While Prota was deep in conversation with some townsfolk, he was suddenly interrupted, not by a voice, but by Fel speaking directly into his mind. It turned out that their family contract included a telepathic connection, allowing them to communicate mentally. This revelation startled Prota at first, but it quickly proved useful. Eventually, Prota and Fel reached the city. Upon arrival, Prota decided his next goal was to obtain a map, anything to keep him from wandering around aimlessly again. He left Fel on guard duty at the city outskirts to avoid unwanted attention and ventured inside alone. Prota's search led him to a library where, luckily, he found a basic guide to magic. However, when he attempted to buy it, the price shocked him. Paper was rare in this world, and treated almost like a luxury item. Curious, he also asked for a world map, only to be told that such an item was banned at the national level. Disappointed but undeterred, Prota visited the city's largest library, only to come up empty-handed again. Defeated, he returned to Fel, but not before striking up a conversation with some adventurers. They told him about two nearby kingdoms, Herman and Leonard, both to the east and known for their political stability and abundant dungeons. Prota mentioned his search for a map, and to his fortune, one of the adventurers offered to sell him one, for a gold coin. Seeing no better option, Prota bought it. Unfortunately, the laughter that followed revealed the truth. He had been scammed. The same map was available at the Adventurers Guild for a mere silver coin. That moment was a harsh lesson. Trust was a luxury he couldn't afford in this world. Not long after, Prota and Fel traveled again, heading toward a coastal region. Briefly, the narrative shifted to a distant scene. High above, the goddess of wind, Nenrir, was observing Fel with quiet interest. While the story didn't dwell on her intentions, her attention hinted at future developments. Meanwhile, Prota and Fel camped beside a serene lake. That night, they had decided on a fish dinner. While Fel prepared the fire, Prota stood to stretch and was startled to see something squishy at his feet. A slime. Harmless, weak, and oddly adorable. Prota was instantly fascinated. The slime, apparently only 3 days old, was ravenous. Without warning, it began gobbling up garbage around the campsite, even nearly devouring Prota's cooking tools. Thankfully, Prota managed to stop it before it ate everything. The slime, in the end, left the area spotless. Amused and impressed, Prota praised the creature. On a whim, he used the family contract magic and bonded with the slime, naming her Zoe. Afterward, he checked her stats and confirmed the contract had succeeded. Zoe had officially joined their little family. The next morning, Prota resumed his magic training with Fel. This time, his focus was earth magic. Fel suggested repeating the goblin exercise to gain real experience, but Prota, still traumatized by the last time, firmly refused. Even so, Fel noted that Prota's magical output had grown. Checking his stats, Prota found he had reached level 8 in just a few days. He suspected it was due to consuming items from his online store, which not only granted stat bonuses, but possibly also affected experience gain. Later that day, he fed Zoe some food and was surprised to see that while regular meals gave small bonuses, unique items from the other world directly boosted her level. Feeling grateful, Prota threw a small celebration in Zoe's honor. Not just for her usefulness, but because he had genuinely grown fond of her. She even helped with daily chores like dishwashing. The next morning, as Prota stretched and prepared for another day, Fel approached him with serious news. She revealed that the goddess Nenrir, who had once blessed her, had now taken an interest in Prota. Apparently, Nenrir had been listening to his thoughts and desires. While she wasn't offering a full divine blessing like the one Fel had, she was willing to grant a partial blessing, immunity from debilitating conditions, illness, and most harmful effects, excluding death and high-level curses. The catch? In exchange, Nenrir wanted one offering per week of sweets from Prota's world, preferably something like Japanese pastries or candies. A small price to pay, Prota thought, for the favor of a goddess. In addition to making him immune to illnesses and most debilitating effects, the wind goddess Nenrir's blessing came with another unexpected bonus. It made it easier for Prota to use magic. There was only one condition. He must offer her sweets from the other world once a week. Prota didn't even hesitate. As soon as he accepted, Fel explained that his offering could be made anywhere, even on a simple stone altar, since in this world, all things are spiritually connected. So, with a few quick preparations, Prota set down a small box of assorted desserts on a flat stone, whispered a short prayer, and stepped back. A soft wind blew through the air. The sweets vanished in a glowing shimmer. The offering had been accepted. Meanwhile, far away in the divine realm, Nenrir gleefully tasted human food for the first time in her existence. Her reactions ranged from delighted gasps to starry-eyed adoration, especially after trying chocolate for the first time. She quickly became smitten, not with Prota, but with his food. Back at the camp, Prota felt a subtle shift in his magic. When he tried his earth magic again, the difference was obvious. The spell cast faster, stronger, more precise than ever before. But just as he was reveling in his success, a voice echoed inside his head. It was Nenrir, now able to speak with him telepathically. That chocolate was incredible. Can I have more next week? Maybe with something crunchy inside? Prota sighed. Apparently he'd signed up for a weekly snack run. But he smiled. She sounded so excited. Later that day, he and Fel resumed their journey and stumbled upon a large cave opening along a rocky hill. Prota paused. That's not just a cave, is it? Fel nodded. No, it's a dungeon. She explained that dungeons often formed near magic-rich areas and acted like natural fortresses filled with monsters and treasure. Despite Prota's hesitation, Fel insisted it was time. You won't survive long in this world unless you learn to defend yourself, she said. And your progress is too slow without real combat. Though reluctant, Prota understood. She was right. He needed experience, fast. So they entered. The first creature they encountered was a weak slime. But before Prota could act, Zoe leapt forward and annihilated it with a shot of acidic mucus. Fel examined the remains and confirmed. Zoe wasn't like other slimes. Her attack was far stronger and more refined. They ventured deeper. On the second floor, they fought horned rabbits, and on the third, goblins. Prota found it odd. In forests, monsters avoided him, but in the dungeon, everything attacked him. Fel explained. In a dungeon, everything considers you an invader. Level doesn't matter. Eventually, they reached a deeper level, the lair of werewolves. A fierce battle broke out. Prota, overwhelmed, relied heavily on Fel's magical barrier. But when her shield weakened, he found the courage to fight back. He used earth magic to collapse part of the ceiling, defeating two enemies at once. They pressed on, deeper still, until they reached the dungeon's heart. An entire army of werewolves awaited. Cornered, Prota was tossed into the fray alongside Fel. Frozen by fear, he nearly gave up, until Fel's magic shielded him again, buying him precious seconds. With a deep breath, he summoned his courage, and unleashed everything he had. His magic tore through the werewolves, clearing the room. But just as they caught their breath, the king of kobolds appeared, a towering werewolf with eyes of fire. Fel's barrier struggled against the king's furious blows. Prota's spells barely scratched him, and his magic reserves ran dangerously low. The barrier began to crack. The end seemed near, until Zoe sprang into action. Glowing with power, she launched a massive acidic blast at the monster. It sizzled, through fur, bone, and rage. The king howled in agony, and collapsed. The glow around Zoe intensified, but before Prota could say anything, she collapsed from exhaustion. When Prota next opened his eyes, he was outside the dungeon. Zoe was beside him, safe, but visibly worried. Then she spoke, telepathically. "Are you okay?" Prota blinked in disbelief. She could speak now? Zoe explained. Defeating the king of kobolds had changed her. She had grown stronger, smarter. Checking her stats, Prota discovered she was no longer a juvenile slime. Her level had skyrocketed. He checked his own stats as well. He jumped 4 full levels, a massive gain for a single dungeon crawl. And yet, Prota had a feeling that this was just the beginning. After his victory in the dungeon, Prota unlocked his next magical ability, Advanced Earth Magic. Yet even with this new power, he couldn't help but feel slightly defeated. Zoe, a creature born only 14 days ago, was already stronger than him in many ways. While Prota was still processing this, Fel returned from a brief absence. "You've been out cold for a while," Fel said flatly. "I may have taken the opportunity to go grab a snack." Prota squinted. "You told me your barrier would hold forever." I lied. The silence that followed was heavy, until Prota's stomach growled loud enough to declare war on the surrounding peace. Begrudgingly, the two agreed to celebrate their dungeon survival with a feast. Once they were all fed and lazily resting under the stars, Prota decided to ask what he'd been wondering since they left the dungeon. "Hey, Fel, what were you talking about with Zoe while I was unconscious?" Before Fel could answer, Zoe happily chirped. "Uncle Phalo!" Prota burst out laughing. Fel choked on his drink. "What did you just call me?" "Uncle Phalo," Zoe beamed. "Stop that!" Fel barked. "I am not your uncle!" But it was too late. Zoe was too fond of the nickname. Fel's protests only made her repeat it louder. Eventually, Fel stormed off in mock tears, muttering something about how he'd been betrayed by a slime. To calm him down, Prota had to pat his back and whisper, "You know she only calls you that because she likes you." "I know," Fel grumbled. Eventually, the trio resumed their journey and neared the borders of a new kingdom. Fel warned Prota they'd soon pass through a forest ruled by orcs and griffins, territories filled with territorial beasts. Normally, travelers skirted around the forest, but Fel had a different plan. "We're going straight through." Prota nearly fainted. "Are you crazy?" Fel waved it off. "None of them are a threat to me. The only ones who might try something are the cocky younglings." And just as Prota opened his mouth to argue again, Fel added, "Too late. We're already in orc territory." It was quiet, at first. But then, they heard rustling, low growls, heavy footsteps. Suddenly, a group of orcs surrounded them. Prota, panicking, shouted, "Fel, take Zoe and run! I'll try to hold them off!" Instead, Fel stood his ground. To the orcs, he calmly said, "You don't know who you're picking a fight with." Unimpressed, one of the younger orcs charged. Big mistake. Fel effortlessly sidestepped and knocked him out cold with a flick of his claw. The rest froze. Then, slowly, they began to back away. When Prota returned from his hiding spot, he was stunned. "That was insane," Fel smirked. "Now you see why I don't worry." Zoe looked at him with starry eyes. "Uncle Philo's amazing. Stop calling me that." But he didn't mean it. That night, as they sat around their campfire eating roasted meat, Prota asked, "How much longer do we have until we're out of this forest?" Fel glanced at the map. "We've already crossed more than half." Prota did some quick mental math. "Wait, we've been here 3 weeks already. That means another 3 weeks left?" Fel nodded. "Roughly." Prota looked at their supplies, then at the half-eaten meat in his hand. Their food stock had been heavily depleted from all the feasts. At this rate, he muttered, we'll be out of food long before we're out of this forest. As usual though, the group ended the night with another grand feast, because when you travel with a gluttonous beast, a talking slime, and a human who cooks like a 5-star chef, rationing never stands a chance. The caravan leader, Lambert, agrees to let Proda, Fel, and Zoe join them on their journey to Corlin City. He mentions that the city is known for its lively markets and trade, which could be helpful for Proda to replenish his supplies and gather more information about the world. As the caravan continues its journey, Proda grows more curious about the people traveling with them. Among the group is Lars, the leader of the Phoenix Group, a band of mercenaries who are responsible for guarding the caravan. Lars seems intrigued by Proda's companions, especially Fel, whose power has clearly impressed him. Proda notices that Lars is a skilled fighter and someone with a strong sense of responsibility, which makes him wonder about the nature of these mercenaries. Over the next few days, they travel through varying landscapes, from dense forests to open fields. Proda's time with the caravan allows him to observe how different people live in this world and how they interact with each other. Along the way, he picks up new information about the Kingdom of Leonard, which is a strong, prosperous kingdom that serves as a hub for adventurers, merchants, and adventuring guilds. One evening, as the caravan makes camp, Proda strikes up a conversation with Lars. He asks him about the Kingdom of Leonard, its politics, and its role in the world. Lars shares that the kingdom is ruled by the Leonard family, known for their wisdom and strength in both magic and military prowess. He also mentions that the kingdom has strong ties with several neighboring regions and has been involved in securing peace between various factions. However, Lars warns that not everything in the kingdom is as peaceful as it seems. There are whispers of unrest, and some of the guilds and noble families have started vying for power, which could lead to political instability. Proda takes mental notes, realizing that the situation in the kingdom might be more complex than it initially seemed. The next day, they finally arrive at Corlin City. Proda is amazed at the size and vibrancy of the city, with its grand buildings, busy markets, and the constant flow of people coming and going. It feels like a place of endless opportunity, but also one filled with intrigue. Only this, but also his family had a shoe store and other goods. After this, Proda says goodbye to Lambert as he promised to accompany the other adventurers to the guild. This is his farewell already. In the guild, Proda finds out that his license as an adventurer has been revoked. This is because he spent more than a month without completing a single mission. Proda remembers that the real reason he did not accept any missions was because they were passing through the Forest of Griffins. Hearing this, the miss who served Proda explains to him that most Drang adventurers decide to quickly complete the minimum number of tasks in order to increase their rank, since this way they will not have to report or complete missions for 3 months. In addition, these missions also have more experience and money after this. Proda requests to be sent back to the Adventurers Guild again after paying the required fee. This time, the Proda tells Miss that since she last signed up she has more relatives, but then gets taken out of the bag by other adventurers, seeing that the Proda are bringing slime. They start to mock him, since let's remember that this creature is usually quite attractive, weak against anyway. So after registering with the guild, he decides to go and sell the monsters he married during his journey. After a few moments, Proda pulls out all his hunt, which impresses the group of adventurers accompanying him. After that, the butcher who served Proda thanks him very much for bringing meat of such good quality, and then explains to us that these products cannot be eaten by any commoner. As he heard this, the group of adventurers accompanying Proda decides to ask him what kind of meat he ate yesterday, without any problems. Proda answers him that they honestly ate a little bit of everything, but what most of they were the same animals. After this, the group of adventurers apologize to Proda and then bow their heads to him. This happened because they could not believe that they ate ingredients of such high quality, being people who in their lives could taste them. Proda gets very nervous and asks them not to apologize since they took care of him throughout the trip. After hearing this, the adventurers end up thanking Proda by commenting that they are gladly known in the city, and that if he finds out anything about them, they will only talk to him. And that's what it's about. They said your farewell later. Proda rested at the inn that was recommended to him with the goal of the next morning and for some time to accept and complete quests, since in this way he could rise to the rank of F and not have to worry about the guild for a long time. But before Prota can even fall asleep, he is interrupted by the goddess of the wind, who reminds him that he is indebted to her for her offerings. So without much choice, he ends up sending a large number of desserts and sweets the next day to Prota and Phyllis. We go to the guild to complete several tasks. After reading about the various quests that there are, Prota realizes that each of them has a certain number of points, since in order to achieve an F rank, he needs a total of 100 Folklingen, that he was quite traumatized by the goblins. However, Firth him that the final decision rests with Zoe, and unfortunately Prota ultimately decides to go fight the goblins. A few moments later, we are already in the forest, finding the goblin. The mission is quite simple like this, as you only need to destroy 5 fellows, manage to find a few, but they didn't last long, as Zoe manages to destroy everyone who was there with just one blow. However, for the mission to be completed, it is necessary to confirm your home. For this, Prot must cut off the ears of each of them. The goblins thus leave another injured Prot very soon after that. Even more goblins are attracted by the voice of the Prot, so they end up defeating the hosts with a score. Phil notices that there is a colony of goblins quite close, and although Prota refuses, he is defeated by the spell of Sue, who is having a lot of fun. Finally, after some time, the mission was completed, leaving us with quite a lot of bags filled with the ears of the same goblins. And yet Prota remains alive, more traumatized. After that, he has only one problem left, and that is that these are the missing corpses of goblins. Since if they do not remove the bodies, they can attract the attention of other goblins, more creatures of a higher level, or even creating a dungeon. Prota has no ideas, since even the goblins do not are edible. He tells him that Zoe will dissolve them. A rather confused Prota asks him if this is possible, to which Zoe replies in the affirmative, thereby demonstrating a new ability called the Great Slime. And all this thanks to the fact that Zoe has evolved again. A rather surprised Prota tells Zoya that he also has the ability to shrink in size, to which Zoe replies that he will try to show it to him. So he multiplies into smaller versions of himself, so they manage to destroy a large mountain goblins that they left. Once again reminding us that Sui is unique in her kind. This worries Prota, because his power is starting to get a little out of control, but he has nothing that can stop it later that day, when the resting group and eating Prata realizes that his goal of reaching the rank may have already been achieved, thanks to the huge number of goblins that I killed in abundance. However, El Prata does not believe that this is true, since I thought that I would be leveling up for a few months and resting in the city. It is not surprising that when El Prata arrived to deliver all the goblins he married, he left all the Gremmy in shock from his great feat. The girls who had Prota were very surprised and confused, not knowing what to do with so many goblins. Prota hopes that this will not be any problem for him. But after not a few moments, a girl from the guild comes up to him and says that the guildmaster wants to see him next to his relatives without much choice. Prota is happy they are going to the guildmaster. Here we meet Len, the guildmaster. The master explains to Prota that the reason he called him is that it is because of the large number of goblins that he married. Prota quickly replies that all this happened due to the fact that they crossed paths with the goblin settlement. After hearing this, the teacher decides that it would be a good idea to reward them for successfully clearing the settlement, since this has been causing various problems for some time. After this, the teacher ends up praising them and realizing the force of evil, since the latter really knew that he was the villain Fenrir. But that's not all the teacher says about Tona, that he also called him because he had a rather urgent message from the royal palace. It turns out that the message told the group that the king had granted them the right to live freely in the kingdom, and that this had already been communicated to everyone present, all the nobles. However, the only condition for this is that their cooperation was expected in emergency situations, after which the Prota is surprised knowing about this. Neither the royal family nor the nobles. The guildmaster assures that this will happen more than anything in the world, because Prota owning such a legendary beast as Fel was already a threat to other kingdoms, so El Prota will finally be able to secure his freedom. After this, the teacher returns to the original topic and tells El Prote that his goal was actually to be promoted to rank G, to which Prota replies that he only wants to rise to rank F so that he can keep his license to adventure for much longer. The master, hearing this, suggests Prota to go to level C, since in this way, he will be able to avoid questions about why an adventurer of such a low rank G has Henry as an ally. But in exchange for this, the master asks him for several favors. The one who sees the teacher's look is worried and decides to avoid the topic by telling him that his goal was not to become a famous adventurer. The teacher again insists, saying that these quests have a rank use hearing. The prota asks the fella if he thinks such quests are possible, to which he replies that nothing is impossible for him. After that, they eventually agree to the high-rank missions that the teacher offered them. Ends his conversation by warning them that he will tell the rest of the adventurers not to disturb him more than anything else, so that they will end up not disturbing him. After this, the prota notices that he also wants to sell a few things so that he can then show us the mountain of creatures he had in store, and the teacher tells them that they will not interfere, who is shocked by what he saw. He asks the butcher not to say anything about what he saw, and this is his final goodbye. A moment later, the butcher explains to him that most of the monsters present here are categorized as C, of which the king is a prime example of orcs. A prime example is the orc king, or reaching blue, most due to his extreme difficulty in defeating. Although for El Prod it is not that easy. No wonder Vera brushes them off like flies as usual. The butcher tells him that he will have to come back before tomorrow to get all his meat, and also the master warns him that his new guild rank license will be ready. The day continues, and the group finishes dinner the next morning. We meet at the guild handing over his new adventurer's license. This card has a metallic silver texture. The teacher explains to him that psi-rank adventurers can complete quests every 6 months, so he shouldn't lose his license so easily. Finally, to finish, he ends up giving him his reward for yesterday. This leads to Prota being left amazed at the number of bags full of gold, totaling 461 gold coins, which is significantly more than last time. To Del Prota's surprise, this is only the first batch, and he quickly comments that his second batch amounted to 1.415 gold coins. And finally, the reward for the hunt and the destruction of their settlement gave a total of 19,946 gold coins. Prota, who is very surprised to hear this number, thinks that from last time, he still has money left. So I had extra money, I had more than 2,000 gold coins. After hearing this, you are even more worried about your safety, since no one can know about all the money you have. Otherwise, you will find yourself too easy a target for an attack after this. The guildmaster again asks for help from the proti, asking this time to hunt a metal lizard and a herd of bulls to the point of bleeding. He suggests that you first go after the lizard, since it is only 2 days away. Since this one is only 2 days away, while kick. Besides that, they are going in another direction, turn out to be quite cruel in nature. And by their size, they turn out to be even more dangerous. Prota, to convince fella, tells him that from this meat, they could cook something before the Anhisita. After that, the group gets to work, but before going to Prota, he tells him that first he wants to visit a friend who is Lambert. Since, let's remember that his father and his wife were friends. The family had a shoe store where they sold a lot of goods. Lambert asks what his visit was connected with, to which he replies that it was to look for a new bag since the one he brought was in very bad condition. Lambert tells him that there is no problem, and that he has several bags that he could choose from. Rada asks him if he can try it with Zoe, implying that this bag was for his relative and not for him. So he ends up choosing the cheapest bag. After that, Prota continues to look around the entire store, eventually buying a rather beautiful bag with accessories. But before hunger forced pay her against it, she understands that they also sell shoes, realizing that she always wore shoes, the same old and cheap shoes, and although you can buy them in their online store, you still decide to buy them. Decide to buy more what Lambert offers, so as not to stand out, so your last purchase will be a shoulder bag, wallet, boots, and a belt for his knife. Lambert ends by saying that the price is more than 11 gold coins, but that for him it will all be free since he receives money. He is very grateful to you for saving his life, and also for the fact that that time they ate meat of such high quality. After that, the Prota ends by thanking and accepting the gifts. The next day, the group reaches the mountain where the lizard was located. So after they confirm that this is exactly the place, Fel goes deeper into the mountain to find him, since thanks to his sense of smell, it was quite easy to track him down. Finally, they managed to find the cave in which the metal lizard nests. Once inside the cave, it did not take them much time to find the first enemy. At first they think that this is an ordinary lizard, but after using the ability to evaluate, they understand that this is a Mitria lizard. Prota remains in some confusion since it was assumed that there is a metal lizard in this place. Fel scans and sniffs the entire area, realizing that everything around him was from Mitria. Or so he thinks. That this is an evolution lizard to everyone's misfortune, Fel mentions that mithril is quite light durable, very compatible with magic, a mineral, for the same reason that the latter would not be very effective. And in these simple words is that it can easily absorb and dispel magic. For this reason, the magic would be reduced to half its effectiveness. When I finish listening to this, it is believed that then, even with magic, the power of the Fel will be a difficult battle. The Fel, without hesitation, refuses him and then launches a lightning bolt which eventually defeats the lizard with just one blow. After this, the lizard is rescued and the group begins to explore the cave, where the Prota finds out what triloba ore is, since he wants to have a sword or weapon and even armor made from this ore, since it is very rare. But then from this you can get out of the cave a little. But before I could continue to collect more of them, is interrupted by Fel, who heard comments about that then there is nothing stronger and more durable than his magic barrier, so he does not take up any armor, and instead of thinking about it, he becomes stronger. After that, Fel says that he wants to complete the next mission, leaving the others. Shocked by his enthusiasm, Fel mentions that he does this more than anything else, because the bull's meat was bloody, because it is quite tasty, so that they can then grab the Prot and take him away with them, accusing him of murder. Vol will not take much time to find the whole herd of these bulls, Fel says, rotten, and just in case, Sai will also go with him, leaving him alone to wait, as is already customary. It took them no more than 2 seconds to destroy the entire flock, and later that day the group is going to hand over and demand a ransom reward. For 2 missions. One day in the guild, they left the master and the butcher in shock that I was there, alone, to show Trilon Lizard the butcher. Explains to the Prote that such lizards are extremely rare, and that the last time they could be seen was more than 400 years ago. The teacher also notes that the presence of such a lizard means that a mountain was also created from this mineral. They explain to us that in the whole world there are only 3 mountains in which the mineral can be mined. This is a rare mineral among all the materials that were already rare. The teacher also reports that of this lizard is so rare that it will be given to the king as a gift. Of course, this gift will not be free, as he will be rewarded with a minimum of 5,000 gold coins. Prot, upon hearing this, comes into a state of shock, as he can now be considered a rich man. After this, the teacher is going to tell him that he also hopes that they will complete the Los Taros mission as soon as possible. But before he can continue his conversation about it, ends with showing them that it is already completed, thus bringing out all the bulls in front of them and leaving them even more shocked by us. The day ends with him telling the group that since they have too much meat, so high quality this night, there will be a feast for them that will make Felizoya very happy. To his surprise, the meat turned out to be quite tasty, and the day ended with a huge feast when Prota was making his weekly offering before going to bed to his goddess. He was suddenly interrupted by a strange voice. These voices look like they have been spying on Zani Nir for several days, and seem to be very interested in the sweets and things that she receives. These voices turned out to be 3 other goddesses who again offer her their blessings so that they can also receive sweets as offerings. And although Prota tells him that she received a minor blessing from the wind goddess, they note that it was only a minor blessing, so the earth goddess Quiz Charles offers him the blessing of proximity, which will strengthen her earth magic, while she in turn will also receive one of them, the fire goddess Agnia, who will finish strengthening her fire magic upon hearing this. He ultimately refuses, since they don't know a single person who has so many blessings, and in case the topic of the offering already irritates him enough of the goddesses, not after thinking they decide to give their blessing forcibly. So now, he will also have to send them weekly trays. However, he ends up staying with the water goddess Mermaid, since Prota has no affinity with the water of this goddess, since she cannot give him her blessing, and this would not make any sense. The goddess ends up crying because she feels bad, because she would be the only one who would not receive an offering of rich sweets. Prota, to try to resolve the situation and get some benefit, asks her if she can bless Zoya better than him, if she could take advantage of her blessing. After this, Zoya eventually receives the blessing of the water goddess. However, the goddess gave her a full blessing, and a blessing no less than, since this last goddess only gives 1 blessing every century, while her companions give it every 10 or more years, achieving in such a way that everyone receives the offering equally. The next morning, Prota decides to try out her new enhanced abilities, showing a terrible difference from previous times. Savi also decides a little experiment with his new blessing, demonstrating that at the moment he has too much and monstrous power. The next morning, the group wakes up quite happy, thanks to the earthen house that El Prota built last night. Vera tells him what the purpose of the day is, to which he replies that he has already climbed career ladder, and that there is no need to hunt. Vera tells him that it doesn't matter to him whether every day is dedicated to hunting. But Prota decides that it would be a better idea to give him to hunt Lambert, the black snake he was hunting. Except that he could go to the slaughterhouse. For the previous day's meat, without much choice, the group heads to Lambert's shoe store. But first, they go to the butcher shop for meat, and the butcher tells him that his entire order is ready in addition to his money, thus giving him 4 bags. Full of gold, however, there is still not enough money to pay off the debt to the mithril lizard. For this reason, the guild master had to talk about it with the lord of the city. Although Prota tells him that he is not really in a hurry and prefers that he take care of skinning the black snake, Prota tells him that this time he wants to sell everything except the meat and skin, which the butcher immediately proceeds to later. During the meal, Prota has a surprise for Felix, and this thanks to all the money they received, he managed to buy a meat grinder. And thanks to this, he manages to prepare a new dish called From the Bull's Burger, bound by the blood of the orc general, which to the surprise of very few turns out to be quite tasty. After eating, El Prota decides that he wants to buy personal hygiene products such as soap and shampoo. And thanks to the fact that in this world, everyone has such things, no one will suspect anything to then sell them and possibly earn extra money. As a merchant, later that day, the group is going to give the black snake skin to Lambert, who's surprised because he could not believe that this is real leather in front of his eyes, since let's remember that this is a rather complex leather that can be found in this world, and even more if it is found untouched, like the one that Prota brought after that. Lambert asks him if they will sell it for 50 gold coins, to which he ultimately accepts the offer without any complaints. Among other things, he also came because he would like to get advice on one issue. And the fact is that in fact El Prota was a member of the Merchants Guild, and Lambert is pretty much confused, since it is quite rare to find someone who has registered with both guilds. Prota takes out his hygiene products, asking Lambert if he thinks they will sell well. Lambert checks the products he brings so he can confirm that it is a product. Sniff that it smells very good, like a blooming flower. After this, Prota begins to explain and show him other products such as conditioner, shampoo, and even a face mask. Lambert falls silent for a few seconds and then tells him that he is extremely grateful for meeting him, and the fact is that he explains to us that it is Lambert's wedding anniversary, and that he really cares a lot about the gifts that he was going to give to his wife. For this reason, he thinks that the articles in Prota are perfect, since his wife loved to bathe. After that, Prota is very shocked because he discovers that in this world there are bathrooms. So he asks Lambert if it would be very convenient for him to show him his bathtub. Lambert has no problem agreeing to then show him what a bathtub is like, which made a strong impression on him. He explains to us that the baths are colorful and painted, since just the installation to make them work can cost several hundred gold coins, and that in this world a merchant with a bath is considered a model of beauty, success. After that, Lambert asks him if he is interested in one of them, and that he can introduce him to the store. So, in the end, he agrees without any complaints. Later, El Prota decides to leave Lambert one of each type of product for now more than anything else for him to try them and evaluate their qualities. The next day, we meet at Lambert's shoe store, who is now visiting El Prota to find out how he is doing after giving birth. The bathroom, as soon as he opens the door, El Prota is taken aback by Lambert's wife, who is fascinated by his presence. Lambert formally introduces you both, having discovered that his wife's name is Marie. But before Prota can say anything, she is interrupted by her, who discovers that she is delighted with the goods that Prota gives, because that on the night when she buried her husband, a very pleasant sweet aroma emanated from him after a bath. Except that her hair was quite shiny, which impressed her, and for this reason, she wanted to try them immediately. So she tried them, and was able to see the result, making her skin silky, and her hair cleaner and fresher than ever, even leaving Lambert himself in shock, because these items further emphasize the beauty of his wife. So now Lambert wanted to see if he could buy a whole lot for his wife, but not only that, but also the fact that he wanted the items from them to be sold in the store. I had already thought about this before, but did not ask him for this favor since I was not sure that they would actually be sold, for which his wife tells him that most likely, absolutely everything will be sold, since Marie knows many friends and nobles who would probably quarrel over all these items. After that, she runs up to the seller and tells him that if she is going to sell them, please do it in the store, to which he replies that he will do it without any problem since he doesn't even have his own store. Later, Prota returns to Felix Zoe and tells them about everything that happened. Namely that he left a lot of goods for the llamas, Bert and his wife. So for a while he will have enough of them after that. The Prota decides to go to the Adventurers Guild since he found out that the master had finally returned from the meeting with the Lord of the City, entering the master's room. He eventually lets out a rather loud scream, and the fact is that in front of him was what he saw I was missing. Their overpayment, of which in total was 5,800 gold coins, because the owner of the city was sincerely grateful. And with all this money, he was going to buy the bath of his dreams. But suddenly, they are interrupted by a girl from the guild, and it is she who brings bad news since the city was leading people. Lead the population. Everyone runs out to look at the situation, and while they were running, the girl explains that a swarm of these monsters attacked the group when they were hunting. In the forest plain to the west of the city, the teacher says that he was already informed that some naughty mentors remained. And the matter is that these monsters were apparently looking for the bloody bulls that Prota had already killed by going down to the floor below. We see a scene where there are several wounded, and some with wounds that could lead to their death. Everyone is very nervous because he is running out of healing potions, and they don't think that they have that much antidote to save them all, but they are interrupted by Dr. Prota, who tells them that he has high-quality potions by placing her. We see that these potions have fully taken effect on the patient, leaving everyone surprised and shocked. Thus, all the wounded. After that, the teacher tells all the adventurers that his mission is to hunt down all the guides, while all the adventurers of the highest 6th rank must definitely take part in this. Unfortunately, El Prota that day was an adventurer with the rank. If he had not evaded the pack of these monsters, they surely would not have taken much time to attack the city, thus motivating all the adventurers who were in the room. But among all the screams and emotions, they are interrupted Fel, who manages to hear everything, and tells him that he will be able to take care of all these mentors, since this hunt is like a simple exercise for him. And although Prota refuses this idea, in the end, he agrees. Fel also asks if all the monsters in the case will belong to him, to which the teacher answers in the affirmative, and that besides this they will be rewarded with money after hearing this, or they will immediately leave the group. It did not take much time to find these monsters that are similar to dinosaurs. Then Felix Zoe decide to join the battle, where with a large number complications, this whole swarm will be quickly destroyed. In the meantime, Prota hides behind a rock, but to his misfortune, he is also attacked by one of these monsters since he hit him in the back. However, thanks to the barrier of evil, he does not receive any damage, and then he is saved by him and Fel in a combined attack where Fel ends the battle by cutting off his head and leaving Prota injured. After this, the group decides to cook a delicious meal to celebrate their victory, and thereby save the Adventurers Guild in the city. And on this, anime is ending. If you got here, comment. I want a cookie, like and subscribe. See you next time. Bye.